Welcome to week 1 in the Pink Zebra Consultant Training Program. Over the course of the next 11 weeks, you'll be receiving a weekly training in the form of audio or video like this one. The first 3 months are crucial to the success of your Pink Zebra business, and we're committed to making sure that you receive the best training possible so that you get the strong start that you need to make sure that your business is successful. If you've taken the time to watch the 4 new consultant training videos in the course of the last week or so, then you've already got a very strong foundation upon which to build the rest of your Pink Zebra business. These weekly trainings are designed to build on what you've already learned and give you much more detailed, specific tools for success with your parties, working with your hosts, and sponsoring people into your business. We're going to begin by taking a more in-depth look at your party itself, because that really is the key to success in your business. You need to focus on making this experience the most fun, interactive experience that any of your guests have ever had at a home party before, unless they've attended one of yours. I always said I wanted people walking out of my parties saying, that is the most fun I've ever had at one of these home parties. So this week, we're going to begin by talking about how you connect with those guests at the beginning of your parties and how you start out with a very intentional opening that gets them involved and interacting from the very beginning of your party presentation. So let's start out by talking about the very beginning of that party experience before you start your presentation, and that would be the first 15 to 20 minutes that you have with your guests as they're arriving and getting settled. You want to make it your goal to mingle and become a part of the crowd during this time so that you get to know your guests before you start your presentation. Now, we talked briefly during the new consultant training videos about the value of connection and making sure that your guests feel valued by you. So I want to begin today by exploring the language that you're using as your guests arrive at your party in order to connect with them and begin to build that all-important relationship. Now, you might think that the best way to connect is to open the casual conversation with a question. So far, so good. I could not agree more. Now, what question would you typically ask? Possibly, have you ever heard of the Pink Zebra before? Have you ever been to one of our parties? What's your favorite product? I want you to think about who those questions are about. They're about you and your company and your products, right? Well, here's the thing. The guests at your parties don't come there just for your products. Why are they there that night at that party? Well, they're there to have fun. They're there to connect with the host and their friends, not to focus entirely on your products. So why not make your question about them? That way, they feel valued by you, and if you become a really good listener, you learn some valuable information about them that just might support you at the end of the evening in getting them to book an event or look at your opportunity. And really, best of all, if you really learn to listen, it can create that relationship that you're wanting with them. So the best question that I've ever found for instant connection, and more importantly, the best question I've ever found for launching you into an even deeper connection with your guest, is the question, how do you know the host? Here's why I love this question. No matter what the person's answer is to that question, it's always going to lead you to another question. So let me give you some examples. You say, how do you know the host? She says, oh, we work together. Great. What do you do for a living? How long have you worked there? Okay, that's your follow-up. You can ask a follow-up question. You say, how do you know the host? She says, our kids go to school together. You say, really? How many kids do you have? Boys or girls? How old are they? You get her talking. You say, how do you know the host? She says, oh, I don't know the host. I came with Karen. Really? How do you know Karen? So you get the idea. Now you have the opportunity to engage her in conversation around something that matters to her work, her kids, that type of thing, and to ask her more questions about that. Here's a really important tip about this process. Make sure you listen carefully to her answers instead of just waiting to fill her in on your kids, your job, or your life. The more you can make this conversation about her and not you, the more success you're going to find. I tell my clients to get amnesia about their own life whenever possible and to learn as much as they possibly can during this first 15 to 20 minutes about the guests at their party. Remember, being listened to is so close to being loved, most people can't tell the difference. So learn to become a great listener. This one shift can quite literally change not only your business, but actually your life. And it's not necessarily as easy as it might sound. I know for me, I was very enthusiastic about my company and my products and my opportunity, and my first instinct was to want to share that with everyone and anyone who'd listen. So I had to literally remind myself to hold back and let them make it about them in the beginning. I knew I'd have plenty of opportunities to share that enthusiasm as I stepped into my presentation and interacted with them during the course of the party. And I knew if I took the time to listen and they felt listened to and valued by me, that they were much more likely to actually hear that information when it did come time to say it during the presentation, because we'd started a relationship. So now you've connected with your guests and you're ready to step in to your presentation. The key here is to make sure that you start off the evening with a strong, intentional, and fun introduction that sets the tone for the entire evening for you and your guests. Let's look at a very intentional way to open your party. So the very first thing that you need to do during your party presentation is to communicate the fun that's in store for your guests from the very beginning of the evening. How do your guests know what to expect? Well, remember, chances are good they've had a bad experience at a home party before, so they might think they know what's coming. And they're probably expecting the evening to be a bit of a painful chore. So you need to make sure that you overcome that right from the beginning. A strong opening for that party is essential because it sets your guests up to be involved and to interact with you. I'm going to share the opening that I use at the beginning of my parties and that has worked for thousands of direct sellers that I've taught it to. You can choose to use this opening verbatim, or you can use it as a guideline for creating your own opening that feels more comfortable for you. Just remember, the key to this opening and the key to your successful opening will be that it's intentional and that it gets your guests involved right from the beginning. So I always started out by asking if anyone in the room had ever done the hokey pokey. And I did this because I know this is a reference that pretty much everyone understands. We've all found ourselves at some point standing in a group of people, going around in circles, singing the hokey pokey. And if you're in my generation, you did it like in this picture on roller skates. So I asked that question because I wanted to help them understand that I wanted them to get involved. So I would ask them, what's the last verse of the hokey pokey? And of course, that's you put your whole self in. So I would tell them, this is the last verse of the hokey pokey experience tonight. You know, I'm a fun person, but I can't stand up here and create a party all by myself. I need your help. I need you to get involved. So we're going to do the last verse of the hokey pokey, which means you're all going to get involved and have fun with me tonight. Okay, so this is the first step because it gives them permission to get involved and interact. In fact, it tells you that you really expect that from them. So that's the first part. And then I outlined my rules for the evening. Now these are essential because they're not only going to put you in charge, but they're going to set the tone for the rest of the night. Now don't let the word rules scare you. They're actually really simple. And I always started off by saying, I just have a few rules for this evening. My rules are really simple. Let me go over them with you. Rule number 1, you must have fun tonight. And I actually used props during this part of my party to, again, get them involved. You see a picture of pom-poms here. I used pom-poms and I would choose a cheerleader from the crowd and I would give her the pom-poms and she would basically become our party cheerleader. And I would tell her, you're going to help make sure that we have fun. So if I share something that you love or I show a product that you love, I want you to get excited, take those pom-poms and say, woohoo! And then I would tell everyone, let's practice because you're going to cheer with her. If she starts cheering, you're going to be the glee club that backs her up. So we'd all practice. Everybody now has gotten involved and they're communicating with you and they're having fun. Okay, so that's the first rule. You have to have fun. And I would appoint a cheerleader to make sure that she helped with that. Rule number 2, there's no negativity during my party. You're not allowed to say anything negative about anyone or anything. And this is really important because if you've ever had a negative person at a party that you've done in the past, they have a tendency to permeate the whole mood of the room. And everyone else tends to kind of drop to their level. And so I wanted to end that negativity before it ever started. So I found a way to allow the audience or my guests to police themselves here. And I would appoint a party cop. And my party cop, I actually gave my party cop a squirt gun. You can, as long as it's visual or auditory, you can give your party cop anything. I mean, I've had people who've used koosh ball throwers and they call that party cop the koosh commando. I've had people who find a little toy police car that has a siren on the top, and when you push the siren, it makes a noise, and that's what that party cop uses. The main thing is you want this to be something that points out you're being negative and you need to stop. And so I would give my party cop, I would appoint a party cop, and I'd give her the squirt gun, and I'd say, okay, so your job, if anybody says anything negative about anyone or anything the entire evening, you're aiming for the face, and they're going to get a squirt gun to the face. Now, normally I was the only person in the room that ever got squirted. But the bottom line is, this allows your guests to point out you're being negative and it's not okay. And what happens is 95% of the time, if there is someone who tends to be negative in the room, they're either going to be really quiet and not participate, which is fine because they're at least not adding negativity, or they're going to get positive in a big hurry. It takes it out of your hands and puts it in the hands of your guests. And so they're policing each other, and it keeps the party fun and positive, which is really, really important. Rule number 3, I'm going to have a few commercials this evening. And you have to listen to those commercials. Now, these are the times during my party when I'm going to tell you the things you want to know. And I promise I'll keep them short and sweet and interesting. But when I say it's time for a commercial, the cheerleader is going to cheer and you're all going to pay attention and listen. Now, the rest of the evening, I don't mind if you talk, if you talk about the products with each other, you go get a second cup of coffee or take a quick break and come back in. But during my commercials, I really want to make sure that you're focused and listening. So that's why I'll let you know. It's time for commercial. The cheerleader will cheer. You'll all join her. Woohoo! And then I'll share my commercial for that period of time. Now, this is also really important because it shares with them exactly what's going to be happening. And you're telling them up front, I'm going to be sharing some commercials with you tonight. You're getting their permission, really, even though it's unspoken. And so when it comes time to do your booking commercial and you say, time for commercial, they all go, woohoo, and they cheer, and then they're quiet and they listen. I find that people generally do what they're told. And if you ask them up front, please pay attention when I say it's time for a commercial, they'll do that. And later on in the training, I'm going to actually teach you how to create a sponsoring commercial. You already have your booking commercial, and you should be using that because we created that during the new consultant training portion of this training program. So this is how you introduce these commercials. And it's a really important piece because basically you're getting the audience's permission to do those commercials. So now you have at least one example of a great way to open your party. Use this verbatim, or like I said, create one of your own that feels more comfortable for you. Now let's look at your call to action for this week's training. I'd like to have you create your script around opening your party using the worksheet, which you can download from the ZebraNet site, entitled Party Opening Worksheet. You want to decide what tone you're going to set at the beginning of your party, how you'll get your guests involved, and how you'll communicate your intentions and your expectations for the party from the very beginning. And this worksheet is going to help you with that. Like I said earlier in the video, you don't have to use my introduction or the example that I shared with you, but you do have to make yours visual and interactive if you decide to do something different. So make sure that you take the time to complete that worksheet and that setup, because it's a very important part of your party experience. I'd like to recommend that as soon as you're complete with this video, you go to your calendar and schedule time to finish the call to action homework that came along with this training. Next week, we're going to be talking about using your pink zebra story at the beginning of your party and how you create that. And if you go ahead and finish the homework from this week, you'll be ready to step in to next week's training. Have a fabulous week, and I'll see you then.